So yes, we're here with Oliver Hulme of Spidermind Games. Thank you very much for joining us. And we're going to be chatting to him about the Elite Dangerous RPG Kickstarter that should be happening right now as you watch this. Thank you very much. What's your role, first of all, so people know who you are and with what authority you speak?
Right, sure. So I'm the lead writer on the Elite Dangerous role-playing game. So it's basically my fault if you don't like it. I've written it. There is another senior member who is the producer, who's John, and so yes, it's split up between us two.
Excellent. What was it that then drew you to Elite Dangerous? Why did you decide that this shouldn't be just a computer game, it should also be a tabletop RPG?
Well, I'm one of a legion of people who grew up with Elite back when it was first released in '84. I was quite young when I first encountered it, and I was co-pilot for my bigger brother. Basically, as soon as I was introduced to the concept of role-playing games, so when I was brought into Dungeons & Dragons and Fighting Fantasy when I was younger, I immediately started making an Elite Dangerous role-playing game, or an Elite role-playing game. And this game isn't based off that one I designed when I was 10. You'll be pleased to know. But it's an obvious choice. It's a large galaxy with huge amounts of freedom. It's got a long established lore, and it's also just grants a great deal of individual freedom. I think the idea that everyone in the game owns their own ship gives you a great deal of space in terms of what you want to do. You're not dependent on being sort of crew to a large group. You're able to split up. You're able to rejoin. I think it's an excellent setting, and I've always wanted to write one.
Yeah, I think maybe the most exciting moment of the playtest that we did earlier, that you'll be able to find somewhere, link, there we go, magic of the internet, was the fact that we all got our own individual ship when we flew out. Because I was expecting to be like a gunner in a pod.
Yes.
On the bottom of someone else's ship, and then I was like, I get to fly and shoot and do all the fun things as well.
But this is absolutely, because this is what almost every RPG does, and you're all crew or part of the Millennium Falcon, or you're in the Star Trek ship. Someone's a science officer, and you end up doing the same roles, the same things over and over again. So if you're the pilot, you're just dodging, and if you're the gunner, you're just rolling to hit. And if you're the engineer, you do nothing until something goes wrong with the ship. And it's fine. Those games are absolutely fine. But what Elite has always said on Elite Dangerous has continued that tradition, is the idea that you're the owner of your own ship. And so the ships are extremely important and one of the most detailed facets of the game.
Did that amount of freedom and the amount of different things you can do in the actual video game, did that pose any challenges to you at creating the tabletop RPG?
Yes, yeah, it was maddening, because the computer game has hundreds of different modules and is adding more all the time. So there's huge amounts of stuff to put in. One of the objectives that John and I set ourselves is that we wanted this game to reflect Elite Dangerous as accurately as possible. Now, the main thing that Elite Dangerous has is the spaceships. There's other things they want to do. They want you to be able to walk around. You're able to drive around in your SRVs and so forth. But where all the main emphasis is on the ships, and there's huge amounts of detail. So if you're sitting down trying to create a system that takes into account that your thrusters may be a 4D rather than a 4E, or that your power distributor is at a certain rank compared to another, all of those things have to have a meaningful impact in game. Otherwise, there's no point in upgrading. So there was a great challenge in creating a system where every time you improved your ship, it really did feel like an improvement, but it didn't knock your ship straight out of the water. It wasn't a massive bonus every single time. To copy that granulated approach that you have with Elite Dangerous. And I think it captures it quite well. You'll see when the core book comes out. Basically.
It sounds like there's a lot of playtesting involved, lots of going over the different systems.
Yes, I mean, it's a game which, if you have any pride, don't try and design, because you have to chuck out all your favourite ideas all the time. It's been playtested for about 13 months. We have a group of people who I got some people in who weren't my friends, and they aren't my friends now either, because they're all swines. They're absolutely ruthless with the system, and there were things in the game that I thought were quite good they demolished, and you have to go back and rebuild it. If you got the feeling while you were doing the playtest that there were all kinds of quite smooth little bits added and there were rough parts of the game that had been filed away, that was the process of the playtesting. And it is a heartbreaking moment, because you can come up with all kinds of interesting different systems, and you got to be ready to ditch it all for the good of the game. And that was a hard thing to do. But I think it's created a better game as a consequence. It's a very smooth and a very it's an easy system to take on, but there's lots of extra bits for mastery, and I think that will capture people's attention.
Excellent. Going back to that freedom then, did you feel that you had to present maybe a certain way of playing the game for the players, or a certain style of campaign for them, or have you tried to again capture that freedom of the video game?
Well, the video game has a very distinctive idea in the fact that you're freelancers for all intents and purposes. You can do anything you like, and with this idea you can pursue military careers, you can be asteroid miners, bounty hunters, there's all sorts of different things you can do. So with the RPG I want to capture that and open up the extra opportunities that you can have by getting out of the ship as well. So in addition to working for a military, you can work for an espionage group, or you can become an assassin. You can work for an explorer group, land on Earth-like planets and explore those. In the core book, there's about 4 different kinds of ways that you can play the game, at least 4 systems that it's been designed for. There's military, so you can try and have a military career. In that case, all of your equipment is provided for you by your patron, and you get better and better equipment as you go up in ranks. There's espionage, where you basically spend your time trying to keep as low profile as possible. You try and steal documents, you try and swap things out. There's assassination missions, there's breaking people out of jail, all kinds of different things. And the RPG does that very nicely, because it's got also a strong emphasis on personal combat. There's exploration, where you can join an exploration company, and you'll set certain tasks. One of the more fun things you can be set an exploration kind of world record, as it were, where you've got to be the first one to cross Death Valley, which is filled with kind of like acidic trees and deadly monsters, and you've got to be the first person to cross it in an SRV, ever, across this 100-mile stretch of lethal wildlife-filled areas. And so that kind of that kind of thing is kind of quite interesting. The last way that we've got in the game is that you can also be a lone wolf, and this is the classic elite dangerous experience. And there you can more or less do anything you want. So you can do some military missions, you can do exploration missions, espionage missions, all sorts of different things, but you work for yourself, and you try and get in the good books of as many sort of big companies and governments as you can, and try not to get in trouble with as many different people as you can as well, because it's very easy to become a wanted man in the elite dangerous universe.
Yeah, there's a moment during our playtest where I realised that although we were the police, we were wearing black uniforms. Mm-hmm. I was sitting next to an assassin.
Yep.
And the oldest guy on the force just kept shooting people in the face,
yes,
rather than trying to arrest them. And I thought, are we the bad guys?
Well, to a large extent, possibly. The nice thing about Elite Dangerous is that it turns many expectations on its head. So on the one hand, it's got a Federation, an Empire, and Alliance, and you think immediately from hearing that, oh well, the Federation will be like the Federation from Star Trek, the Empire will be the Empire from Star Wars, but it's far subtler than that. I mean, the law is very strict in Elite Dangerous. You're police officers, but police officers, they shoot on sight. It's very hard to arrest someone in deep space. It's very hard to capture a vehicle. So police officers are frequently given the right to execute people, and also the detectives that you're working for an independent corporate government, basically. So you're working for big money, and they want to ensure that order is maintained. They're not too picky about how it's done. it's all sorts of moral judgments are turned on their head. The Federation is a democracy, but it's a democracy where you have one vote amongst 50 billion or so. Your vote is almost irrelevant. So you might as well not have it. And so discovering where freedom lies in Elite Dangerous is in space and being able to make your own destiny. And that hopefully is an element that we've captured in the RPG.
Yeah, I mean, that background sounds quite rich and interesting, but a video game will only ever show you what it wants to show you, and it can have lots of gaps in the background that you never know about. Did you find that you were having to fill in bits of the background or make things up?
Less than you might think. So there's some things, so for instance, the names of weapons had to be devised, the extent of cybernetics, things like that. But there's a huge amount of pre-existing world lore. When Frontier approved our license, they gave us essentially what was known as the author's documents, which is a large number of documents which have been edited. There's actually much more in the background. And it covers everything from, how people cook meals to, what people's daily commute is like, to the largest spaceships, to the smallest individual. It covers all the political systems. So there's a huge amount of stuff which actually has been created. But yes, the computer game struggles to show it. It's one of the nice things, actually, having read all the stuff. When I play the computer game now, and I can see there's an advert there for Kane Massey Mining Corporation, it brings a smile to my face because, of course, I'm one of the few people who actually knows what those guys are like, because there's a document written about them, and it's all sort of slowly creeping in through the corners, as it were. Yeah. But the Elite Dangerous RPG is a way that you can really get to know this stuff. Lore's very important. We're going to release a lot of lore books, all of which are written by people who have either written the design documents themselves or who are producers from the actual game. So we have Mike Brooks, who's the executive producer of Elite Dangerous, is writing one of our books. Alan Stroud, who's written so many of the background documents, is doing many of our other source books. So there's a large amount of authenticity we're trying to capture. That said, if we're talking about canon, it's worth noting that in terms of the order of canon, we don't have supremacy. So if Elite Dangerous later decide that they're going to do something different from us, it's incumbent on us to catch up with them. So we're sort of second down, in the order of canon. But other than that, it's going to be as accurate as we can possibly make it.
What's been your proudest moment, or the thing you are proudest of in the game itself, or even something that you've made up or added in?
I like the ship combat, and I think when people play it, they like it as well. It seems when you first read it a bit off, because we're all trained to see spaceship combat as a nice hex-based thing where you measure details exactly, and this range goes to there. The experience that you get from playing the Elite Dangerous role-playing game, it's very different. It's much more visceral. It's much more immediate. When you get into a fight, you're yanking back on the joystick to try and get behind people, and you're slamming on flight assist off, and you're spinning almost out of control, doing anything you can to get those guys in your sights. And a hex, I did try. I initially started with a hex-based system, but it just didn't capture it because it's 2D. It somehow confined the imagination rather than opening it up. When you've got the different zones, it somehow just works. The distance zone is safer, but it's harder to attack people. And the up-close zone is more dangerous, but you have more opportunities for attacking your enemies. When you add in all the extra little bits, when you're playing the playtest, it can seem quite simple, but there are many other additional actions. There's 10 in the core book. We may well include other things as well as we go later on. And with all the equipment that you can activate chaff during your turn to make people make it more difficult to be hit. You can drop mines to stop people from dogfighting you, for instance. So they've got to fly through this small minefield before they can get behind you. There's loads of different levels of complexity that you can get into from what is otherwise a very simple idea. I feel it captures the feeling of Elite Dangerous very well, and I'd really encourage people to try it and see if they feel the same way.
Sounds good. I really enjoyed the bit that we played, and that was, as you said, from the playtest. It was very sort of simplified.
So much stripped back,
but it was. We were immediately in a fight. We weren't measuring things and trying to do calculations. We were either in the fight or on the edge of it, and you could be dragged in at any moment by someone coming towards you. You're
always in peril, and this is one of the things that I want to get across. Elite Dangerous, you're always being flanked. Someone else is coming behind you and shooting you. You're always in great danger, and that's the nice thing, that you can be apparently in a position of power. You're doing very well, you're behind someone, and then all of a sudden they're swooping behind you and you just can't shake them from your tail. And you'll discover as you play with different ships that some ships greatly prefer other kinds of tactics. There's a ship called the Imperial Clipper, which you'll get in the military source book, which is incredibly fast but very clumsy. So it greatly values jousting in and then trying to disengage out. Because if it tries to get into a dogfight, it's hopeless. Other things will get behind it very, very easily. So it's... I like to think it both reflects the game and also just always places you in peril. You're far less likely to have your turn, then go off for a cup of tea, because at any moment you could be involved in another kind of furious dogfight.
What was the your best moment from playtesting? The best thing, the thing that stands out in your mind, maybe where someone surprised you with your own mechanics, or...
I enjoyed in one of the other playtests. There was one of the people played a character called Yenya Kurian, who mostly uses a sword. And she saw that the sword does 1d10 points of damage, and that guns can do up to 3d10. And she was a bit disappointed, and she thought at first, well, my character is awful. And that ended when she got up next to someone, she hit them, and then the other person just couldn't shake her, tried to shoot her in the face. She attacked, kind of in close combat, disarmed him, knocked him over, attacked him again and stabbed him and hacked him. And it was lovely to see that there was a balance there, that... because, you start off in a theoretical world. When you're designing an RPG, you hope it all comes together. That was just one of the things that just seemed to work. You have this nice balance between... It's not permanently sticky. Sometimes you can get away. If you try and get away from a sword wielder, sometimes they'll miss. You step back, you shoot them point blank range, down they go. But very often it's your worst nightmare, having a Bruce Lee style martial artist in front of you giving you hell. You've got a gun that can take them down in one shot, but you just don't get the opportunity. And that was lovely because it provides a justification for every kind of combat in the game. They all have their place. And it means that you don't just have to be one kind of character in order to be the best. And I suppose what I'm talking about there is metagaming. That it's you can't just say, well, I'm a shotgun specialist, so I'll always win. Because shotgun's the most accurate at point-blank range. As soon as you come to a fight which is being fought at 400 metres, you're toast. You have nothing to contribute. So it's very nice how... I've liked how personal combat has developed. And I think I like the speed. I think it's a fast game. And that sort of captures my instinct. Some people think of Elite Dangerous as being a slow game. But I think the opposite. When you're in combat, it's very quick. And it wouldn't make sense to me to have a game which slows down and it gets too bogged down in details. And we'll see how people feel, basically.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much. Cheers.